Hi guys, this is Megan Arndt. I wanted to show you a little before and after how I can change my picture to become to strengthen my composition by creating symmetry using Photoshop. So I'm going to start off in Lightroom with this picture that I took here, and then I'm going to do some changes and then take it into Photoshop and create this here. So you can see how from this we are almost symmetrical, but not quite. And then once I take it into Photoshop and we mess around with it a little bit, then we kind of create this nice, pleasing balance. So this was taken at the top of the Hancock Observatory here in Chicago. This is my sister and brother-in-law and their two girls. And when they were doing this, this is a touristy thing called the tilt, where they stand there and the windows tilt out over the city. I was standing on the outside, and this is looking through a glass window here, and I loved how this almost created symmetry here with the two adults on either side and then the two girls in the middle, and they're all holding on, and it looks like they're connected and joined. But since there are more people, darn those tourists, it's not quite symmetrical. And so when I took the picture, I knew I was going to mess around with it and try and make it, strengthen it and make it look symmetrical, and so that's what we come up with there. And I converted it to black and white because I liked the way it made their silhouettes stand out, and I thought it made a stronger image. Okay, so let's get started here. So starting out here, the first thing I'm going to do is straighten and crop, because that's just how I work, and I can't work with a not straight image, and I don't take a straight image. So first I'll remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. We probably have a lot of chromatic aberration because of the bright highlights here around them. And then profile corrections will just also help because I took this with a really wide angle lens. So it'll help to kind of get those lines a little bit straighter. Okay, I'm going to try to do auto correction here, and we're going to see what that does. Sometimes that works and sometimes not. Okay, so we're almost straight, but I don't like, the vertical lines are not perfect here. So I'm going to try full, and we'll see if that helps. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, so that looks pretty straight. I actually like what that did. And that really strengthens the frame and creates this nice straight lines. I like that a lot. I'm going to crop it in a little bit. So I hit my crop tool. I just want to get this a little bit less negative space going on around here, and try and crop out that woman a little bit too in the background, or not in the background, but on the side over here. So I'm going to move it over to get some of her out if I can. And I'm going to kind of try and get these on the rule of thirds, those door frames if I can. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So I'm just kind of cropping it in and getting it how I like it. I'm going to move it down, and I'm looking up here at this thumbnail to just sort of get an idea of what it's going to look like as the final product. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. That woman's a little bit cropped out, and then we don't have too much negative space up here. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. We'll accept that. All right, I'm going to leave the white balance as it is for right now. I'm okay with it, and eventually you saw I'm going to convert it to black and white, so I don't need to mess with the colors too much. But I am going to increase the contrast, so I'll go up to maybe, not too much, maybe +5 or 6 here. There we go, just to make those highlights and their silhouettes stand out a little bit more. I'm going to bring down the highlights though, because I really like to be able to see a peek of the city in the background. I like how you can kind of see these buildings. They're not in focus, but you get a hint of what's going on there. So bring down those highlights so we're not blown. I'm going to increase the shadows because I want to be able to see them. I don't want them 100% in silhouette. I like to see a little bit of the highlights flowing down their backs there. So we'll kind of increase the shadows up here a little bit. Just like that. Okay, I like that. I'm going to increase the clarity because I really like to be able to see them pop. And so you can see what that did for them there. Okay, I'm not going to mess with the tone curve, and I'm not going to mess with the colors. I don't like how you can see she's got really light blonde hair, and you can see some green casting on her. I don't love that, but because I plan to convert it to black and white, I'm not going to futz around with that too much. So we'll go down, I'll put in some sharpening, maybe around 40. I'm just kind of doing some sharpening here, and I'm going to mask some of it off, so I'll do that because That way we're just sharpening more around the edges and less in there, because you can see I shot it with ISO of 2000, which isn't terrible for my camera, but you can see there is a decent amount of noise in there. So I don't want to sharpen it too much except for around the edges. On that note, I'm going to do some noise reduction. I'll probably do about maybe 20, and then I like to increase the color detail to 50. Okay, so I'm pretty good with that. We did our perspective. Okay, so I think this is about all I'm going to do. I'm not going to add a vignette right now because I want to go ahead, and I'm not going to convert yet because I want to do all of my cloning work before I add any of those things. Sometimes it's a little harder if it's in black and white to clone because you kind of miss out on some of the details in there. Okay, so from here, I'm pretty happy with what we have. I'm going to go ahead and take it over into Photoshop. Right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop, and hopefully it does not take forever to get me there. All right, there we go. First thing I'm going to do is Command J, duplicate my background layer so that we don't have any destructive editing going on. I want to just clean up the frame a little bit. It's not going to be perfectly clear because I am shooting through a window. So you can see they had this weird, I don't even know what this is, spray stuff down here. But I want to kind of clean up some of these little dots that you see kind of going around here. And I am going to get rid of this line running through them as much as I can. Okay, so I'm going to take my spot healing brush tool, which we have going on there, decrease my brush size, and I'm just going to kind of go around and clean up a little bit of these spots just so that they're not super duper distracting. That didn't do a good job. Okay. There we go. It's just light peeking through there, but I feel like it distracts the eye a little bit, so we're going to get rid of all that. And the spot healing brush tool is pretty good when it comes to these kinds of little marks. So that's kind of my go-to. I don't like what it did there. Let me zoom in a little bit more and make my brush smaller. There we go. Now, I could obviously go nuts here and like really clean this up a lot, but I think for my purposes, I'm pretty happy with that there. Let me come in and do this. A couple more things. Okay. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to try and actually I think I'm going to clone this first and then get rid of this, just so I'm not messing around with this woman too much. Okay. First things first, I'm going to take my rectangle marquee tool and I'm going to select a large portion of this frame over here that I can copy and paste over here. I'm going to select more than I actually need because you can always erase it with a layer mask. So I'm going to start probably over here, drag down all the way over there. Okay, cool. I'm going to say Command J, that's going to copy it for me, or actually edit, copy. And then I am going to take my move tool and move it over here, edit, transform, and flip horizontal. There you go. So what that does is make a mirror image copy of it. And I'm just going to kind of line it up over there. Let me get it lined up the best that I can, and then we're going to go through and we're going to erase it, the parts that we don't need anymore. All right, let me take the opacity down so I can see what I'm dealing with, because I want to make sure I obviously keep my sister there and erase her husband, but I want to get rid of this woman as much as possible. So I just kind of want to see what I'm doing here. Okay, I'm going to take this and hit the layer mask. Okay, then I am going to make sure, I'm going to select my brush tool, make sure I have a black brush, and make sure I'm at 100% opacity, because we don't want any leftovers of this. And I'll start off with a big brush, and then for the detail work, I'll go to a smaller brush. So first I'm just gonna make some big sweeps to kind of see what I'm dealing with and get rid of this here. Okay, let me increase my opacity back up. There we go. All right. Now we're gonna have to zoom in and get around her boots. Oops. But then we're gonna get this, I don't know what this is, a bin or a trash can or something. We're gonna get that to cover up part of her boot. So I'm gonna hit X to get the white brush back because we erased some of this trash can or whatever it is. And I'm gonna make sure that we kind of just do the best we can over here. Okay, and I'm getting some of his foot over there. So decrease my brush size even more, hit X again, so we can get the black box and erase it off of there. And there we go. And all of this gone over here so that it looks realistic. Okay. Erase his foot from there. I'm going to decrease my brush size to pretty small so I can get in here and get this detail, get this line really sharp, which I'm not doing a good job. X again to get the white, and then there we go, right along the edge there. All right. Ah. X again to get black. So this is just going back and forth and kind of getting it as close as possible as we can. X again to get the white. There we go. Okay. Let me zoom out for a second so we can see. All right, there's a little bit of a line there that I need to take care of. So let me zoom back in. B for brush tool. I'm gonna X to switch back to black. Erase a little bit more around here. Cool. You hit X to get white. There we go. Okay, zoom back out. All right, I like that. I feel like it looks pretty realistic right there, just around here. Now we need to take care of this over here and get rid of this woman. So I'm gonna keep it on white because I wanna reveal the layer mask that's around here. Get B for brush tool, and I'm gonna increase my brush size here. I'm just hitting the right bracket key to do that. And sweep over this woman to get rid of her and get that reflection back. Then I'll zoom in to get the details over there. Nope, I don't like that. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to black, and I'm gonna actually keep this as it was over here. Decrease my brush tool, my size. There we go, I kind of like that a little bit better. I'm gonna zoom in here to get this detail work really well here. Switch back to white. So I know watching cloning is a little bit boring, and it just takes time. You just have to work at it, and the more you mess around with it, the better sometimes it looks. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. Okay. So I'm just switching back and forth by hitting X from black to white to try and go over this and make it look natural. Okay. I am going to take my brush tool. If I click up here, you can see I have a really soft brush. It says it's at 0% hardness. I'm going to increase the hardness to get it to be a harder edged brush. And that way when I go in here on this line, it will be, it won't bleed over at all onto there. So there we go, that creates more of a hard line. Oops. which I like better. Okay, switch back over. All right, let me zoom out to take a look at it and see. Okay, I like that. It looks like a structural element right there. It's not perfectly symmetrical from here to here as far as the duct work and all of that goes, but I'm okay with that because naturally it's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. Let me zoom in to kind of clean up this a little bit because we see a little bit of ghosting here from her arm and the other woman that was over there. Let me get back to my brush tool here. I'm going to take this off. And I'm keeping the harder brush because right now we're dealing with, again, these structural elements, these architectural elements, which are straight lines. So I want to kind of keep the hard edged brush so that we can get in there as close as possible. And we can always go back in with a softer brush if we need to. Oops, I went over that, did not mean to. If we need to clean it up and make it blend a little bit better. Okay. I don't like that, so I'm going to keep that as it is. All right, let me zoom out and kind of see where we are here. This part here needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And then I think we're okay here. We're okay around the edges here. So actually we're doing pretty well. Almost finished here. Back to my brush. I'm going to hit X to get the white back, and I'm going to go back to a softer brush so that I can kind of blend this area a little bit better. And I want to see what we're doing. Let me decrease the opacity so I can see what's underneath there. Okay, you can see that we have this reflection here underneath, and then if we increase it, just going back and forth. Okay. Ooh, whoops, I'm not on the layer mask. Sorry, guys. I was clicked on the thumbnail itself instead of the layer mask, which I want to be on the layer mask so I can go back and forth. All right. Okay, so I don't like what that's doing there. So I'm going to go back to this and we'll see what happens. Because I think this looks more realistic. It's lining up this and this part of the handle and this part of the handle are lining up more if we use the original. So I'm just going to go down like that. Okay, and I think we're pretty good there. Let me clean up this little edge right here. Okay, let me zoom out and kind of see how we're looking there. Okay, so I like it. I think it looks pretty good. We have the handles kind of cloned in there, and then the reflection from this side is over here still, and we're looking pretty symmetrical, so I like that. The last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go Command Option Shift E, and that's going to pull up a pixelated layer that's sort of a copy of all of these layers underneath. And we need that in order to clone out this line here. Because we can't do it on this layer. If we cloned on this layer, then it would only work on these parts that we copied and pasted. Okay, so I'm going to try it with my spot healing brush tool like I did before, and we're going to see if we can kind of get in there with some fine detail work and get rid of that line as much as possible. Some of it doesn't need to be perfect because some of it's in such shadow that you're not going to notice it. So I'm just going to try to do little bits at a time, and you can see it's working pretty well. Whoops, I don't like that. That looks pretty good so far. So I just want to do it in little tiny bits, and when we're doing it around our skin, we're going to have to be careful. Yeah, I can see it kind of sometimes does that. Let me zoom in more. Okay, just a little bit at a time. And remember, because we're converting it to black and white, the coloration doesn't need to be perfect, but we want the tones to be similar. All right, kind of go across here. I don't like that last thing that it did. Okay. There we go. I'm not going to do anything there because you can't really see it since it's in the highlight there. Cool, this is actually doing a pretty good job. about this? That's probably going to look funky. Oh, actually, it did a good job. All right, let me get rid of that one right there. Okay. Now, after I'm done here, I'm going to take it into Lightroom again, save it into Lightroom, and I'm going to convert it to black and white in Lightroom, just because I have a preset there that I love and I use for all of my black and whites. And so to stay consistent, I always pretty much convert to black and white in Lightroom. I'm not going to do anything with this line here because you can't really see it. It's falling on that highlight there, so it's not super noticeable. Go across like this. So I'm just kind of doing it in the areas that it's the most noticeable, so that we don't have this giant line running through people's heads. I'm not going to worry about the highlight there, but I will do it across her head, because that's obviously distracting. There we go, that's pretty good. Okay. And you can get as detailed with this as you want to, or, you know, kind of do a little bit less detailed like I'm doing right now, just because, like I said, it's not as noticeable in certain areas. Okay, now this is going through his skin. Again, it's going to be a little bit more work. Or maybe not. Sometimes Photoshop is surprisingly wonderful. Okay. There we go. And I'll zoom back out in just a second to sort of reevaluate how it's looking and if there's any other parts that need to be tweaked as far as the cloning goes and this spot removal that we're doing here. Oh, I do not like that at all. Hang on, we'll go with a different tool and work on that in just a second. Okay, this one is not so bad. Just do a little bit like that. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, I see right here I'm not loving it, and right here I'm not loving it. So I am going to try it with the healing brush tool. So I right-clicked on there, click on the healing brush tool, and basically this is kind of similar to clone, except that you are, it's sort of matching the pixels the best that it can and blending it in. So I can hit Alt on my keyboard, or Option if you're on a Mac, select an area that I want to sample from. So I'm going to select right there because it's on the line of his skin and also has this white light kind of running through it there. And we're going to try and go through there and see if we can match it up the best that we can. I'm not in love with that. Kind of just going around and okay. There, that's pretty good for our purposes, I think. And then let me fix this part right here, and then I think we're almost home free here, guys. All right, let me zoom out. Let's see how we're doing. I think that actually pretty much took care of that line pretty well. You can see if I turn off this layer, there's with the line, there's without it, and it actually makes a huge difference. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Alt on my keyboard and click on the background layer just so we can see the before and after from just taking it into Photoshop. And I'm doing this so I can sort of see if there's any areas I missed. And I can see right here, there's a little bit of ghosting. So let me go back to this layer where we were cloning, on the layer mask, get my brush tool, and I want to erase this part of the layer mask. So hit black over here. And let's see, we're still at 100% opacity. We're still with a soft brush, which is good for our purposes because, yeah, oh, that's a problem. So what I'm going to do here is create a layer mask here, and I'm going to get rid of this part of the layer mask. Because I had pulled a pixelated layer up above this one, it was going to supersede anything I did under here. Since we didn't do any cloning on this layer down here, the only thing we did was this line running across, I can create a layer mask and just get rid of this one section to make that kind of nice and clean. Okay, so again, hit my Alt key, hit the background layer. I'm just turning it on and off, to see if there's any noticeable areas that we need to fix up. And I think we're looking pretty good here. I think it makes a huge difference. Okay, so I'm just gonna go File, Save. It's gonna pop it right back into Lightroom for me in a second here. And then I have on my presets, my favorite preset, which is from the Click and Mom Cinema Sampler set, which is often free, offered free on Facebook or other social media. Casablanca is my favorite. I love what it does. It really makes the subjects pop in the right light, and it adds just the right amount of clarity and contrast, and you can kind of see what it does here. But the one thing I am going to do is take away the grain that we have going on, just because I don't want grain in this particular picture. So double click on that to get rid of the grain. Other than I'm pretty happy with what we have going on here. And I think if we see the before and after, here's the before that we did, and here's the after that we did. You can see what a big difference it makes. How it really strengthens our composition to make this symmetrical, and it really makes them stand out. It makes this strong family silhouette portrait. So thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know.